Oh my goodness, hang on a second. Checking the audio. There we go. I think we're on now. This is why I like to try and come on a minute or two early just to, to make sure everything is working. And now we have our audio working. So hopefully this is going to be a nice, smooth flowing event for you today. Hi, everybody. I'm Steve Lowell, and sound. Yeah, it should be on now, I think, John. I'm Steve Lowell. Welcome to our session. Glad to have you with us. Today, we're going to talk about there you go. Good. Thank you, John. Today, we're going to talk about something that I call the 6 levels of influence. And the reason I want to share this with you is because maybe you've had this experience where you know that you are more than what you have become. You know, you see a bigger world, you see a bigger vision, you see more opportunity than where you're playing. And sometimes, you know, we think about playing a bigger game and how do we expand our business? How do we scale our business? How do we make more money, charge more, work less? All those things that we want to do as entrepreneurs. And of course, we're no different. You know, we spend a lot of our time trying to figure out how to improve what we do. And so what we like to do is share what we've learned with you and to provide value, because our mission is to help 1,000 entrepreneurs who see the value in growing their selling skills by changing the way you speak to your market so that you can attract more of those ideal prospects and close 80% or more of your sales conversations. And everything we do is built around that mission and that commitment. And today is part of that. So I want to share with you this concept. Over the years, you know, in 30 some years of business, I've hit different levels, as most of us have, where we sort of get stuck at a level and then we learn something, it takes us to the next level, and then we get stuck and we learn something, it takes us to the next level. And I kind of try and track what works for us and what doesn't work for us. And what I've found is that there are 6 different levels of what I call levels of influence. And there are certain skills that help us navigate through these levels of influence. And I want to share some of those with you today. And all of this is part of a bigger system. It's a bigger system that we call the perfect sales system. I'll talk to you about this again a little bit later. I have a gift for you just for being with us here today. Now, we call it the perfect sales system because over the years, we've assembled all these little pieces and we put them all together, and it's become the perfect sales system for us. And we do things very deliberately. And now I speak all over the world, even virtually. In the next month or two, I'm speaking in Canada, I'm speaking in the US, in Africa, in New Zealand, in Australia, in India, in Germany next week, and in the UK. And all of this happens in part because I want to share with you what I want to show you today. So I'm just going to grab my flip chart. So in our business, here's what we've noticed. There are certain skill sets that we had to develop, as you know, as you can imagine. Some of the skills I have, some of the skills I don't have. And so I rely on my wife, Jane, because she has a different skill set than I do. We have some common skill sets, but there are things that I'm really good at that are not, you know, in her wheelhouse. There are things that she is spectacular at that are just not in my wheelhouse. So when we put these skills together and we apply them to the framework I'm going to share with you today, it works for us. So I want you to know about it because it might work for you as well. So it looks like this. If I create like this upside down triangle, 6 levels of influence. And the first level of influence is the most basic level. This is where the most basic skills are required. But here's the thing, that everything else is, all the weight is on these skills. And there's a whole bunch of skills that we need at this level, but I'm going to just sort of mention one. This level of influence is what I call the one-to-one level. This is how we engage and interact with prospects and our clients. To build a solid foundation here, the most important skills that I've had to learn are selling skills, being able to convert into business. Now, I know that rapport is in there for sure, and, you know, establishing relationships, all of those things are in there for sure. But unless we can convert to sales, business doesn't happen. And so that's why I say the most important skill we need to be able to master at this level, at the one-on-one level, of influence are the selling skills, being able to take your prospect to a buying decision, convert that into business. And without that, nothing else really happens for most of us as entrepreneurs. Now, I'm talking about us, right? Speakers, coaches, trainers, authors, consultants, thought leaders, experts, professional service providers. We're the ones that have to deal with the prospects and the customers and the clients. So for me, I think that selling skills is the number one skill at that level of influence. Now, once we master that, the next level of influence, and by the way, these don't necessarily happen, in sequential order. Okay. But I believe that you need all of these in order to really scale your business, to make it sustainable, and to reach the levels of business that we want to reach. So the second level of influence is what I call the network level. The network level now is where we start building a network of colleagues and connections, and we start expanding our circle of connection. And so what I find is that the most important skill to increase this level of influence is the connection skill. Being able to establish professional relationships with people, and also being able to know who's who in the zoo so that you can refer back and forth and that type of thing. And so for me, I had to work really hard at the selling skills. I got pretty good at that, so I was okay there. The connection skills in networking, I had to work at that because I'm not a natural connector. I had to learn how to do that, and I did learn how to do that. Now, my wife, Jane, is a master at networking and at connecting. So when she and I merged our businesses together about 6-7 years ago, then the network started to expand because she has the connection skills. And she also has the sales skills. So she's really strong in both of these levels of influence. Now, the third level of influence after the networking level is what I call the community level. Now, the difference in my judgment between a network and a community is this. A network is a group of people that we have a professional relationship with, but a community is a group of people whom we serve. And so the skills that we've found that help build this level of influence, the community level, are relationship building skills. This is where Jane, my wife, absolutely shines, and where I shine less. I can build relationships with people. I can do that. But Jane builds more than relationships. She builds these these relationship, friendship type things. And so what happens is when we go around the world, pre-COVID, and even now virtually, people will talk to me and they'll say, "Hey, Steve, it's good to see you. How are you?" They'll ask me questions, and I can respond, and I can engage in all of those things. And then afterwards, I'll say to Jane, I know that face, but I'm not certain who that is. And Jane will tell me everything about the person's life because she remembers everything about everybody, because she has that kind of passion for building relationships with people. So we have built a community. We have an online community, and we have a live community around the world of relationships that we've built. And to me, that's a different level than networking. So they merge. Of course they merge. We network within the community, of course. And when we network, we build the community. And when we expand the community, we expand the network. That's how these levels of influence work, is they feed each other, right? So when we build a community, we have folks that come into our community. We serve that community. We serve them by things like this, doing this live that you're watching today. We serve them in our Facebook groups. We serve them in our communities around the world when we travel, and when we do the virtual programs and things. So we build a community that we serve. From that community, that increases our network, because there are people in there now that we can refer business to, and people that we can engage as part of what we do. And then when we increase the network, by default, we increase the number of prospects that we get. And of course, that elevates the selling skills. So they all sort of work together. So just to review, level number one, first level of influence, is the one-on-one experience. And for that, I believe that the most important skill of many is the selling skills, being able to convert that into business. The second level is the networking skills, being able to establish connections. The third level is the community level of influence, being able to establish and sustain relationships and provide service. Now, the next level is what I call the circle of influence. Now, the circle of influence is a little bit different than the community. So there's a lot of discussion. If you ask 100 people what the circle of influence is, ask them to define it, you're going to get like 100 different definitions, right? So here's how I define the circle of influence, and maybe this will serve you. You see, I believe that there are two different circles. There's the circle of connection, which are the people that I know. That happens down here at the networking group, at the networking level, okay? I establish connections. But the circle of influence is different in my mind. The circle of influence to me is this. It's the population within which I can catalyze action. So let me explain that. I'll repeat it and I'll explain it. So to me, the circle of influence is the population within which I can catalyze action. And what that means is that there are people in our lives who will do something based on what we do. So we present a session like this, somebody may watch it and go out and improve their business, implement something that we talk about today. I have influenced them to take some sort of action. And then that person might tell somebody else, might refer us to somebody, might invite somebody to our next session. You see, this action is the key to influence at this level. So this is the way I think of the circle of influence. It's not just the people I know, but it's the people who will take some sort of action based on the work that we do. And so the major skill here at the circle of influence level is what I call collaboration. And the reason why I think it's collaboration is because what we've found is that one of the biggest things that helps us grow our business is being able to identify what we call influencers in our world and then leverage their connections, leverage their networks, leverage their circles of influence, leverage their communities, and exchange value. And so we collaborate with them. In one of my previous sessions here, you can go and see it, it's still up there, and we talk about the circle of influence and how to attract influencers. So the circle of influence is, in my life, the fourth level of influence, and the most important skill to develop that level of influence and really leverage it is the collaboration skill. And then the fifth level of influence is what I call branding. Now, branding in this context, to me, is about the front forward-facing messaging of you and your business. It's not about the logo, and it's not about, the colors and all those things, although that's all part of it. I understand that. But in this context, what I'm talking about branding is I'm talking about the messaging that you're putting forth to the world. And what are they hearing? What messages are they hearing? And how are they identifying you? So the branding is about what are they attaching your name to? So when they think about your name, what do they see in their mind? What do they think about? What do they associate that with? And to me, the most important skill that drives that is the messaging. It's the messaging that you bring to the world. Now, we can get down this whole discussion about random branding and controlled branding and all of those things. But and I know that there's books and books, reams of information about branding, and there's branding experts and there's branding schools. And, I know all that. I know that there's all of that out there. But in this context for entrepreneurs, this is what we've found is that the messaging that you put out there is probably among the number one key and the number one skill to establishing this level of influence so that people know what you stand for. So our messaging, we have a lot of different messages, but our messaging is all about changing the way you speak to your market so that you can attract more of your ideal client and close 80% or more of your sales. Now, within that, there's all kinds of activities. That's why we call it the perfect sales system, is because within that framework, there's all kinds of skills and activities that are required in order to make it work. So the messaging is all part of that. So the messaging for us is where you now start entering and start controlling the branding level of influence. And then the sixth level of influence is what I call your reputation. And your reputation is what other people say about you. Your reputation is what spreads around this world based on what others say and what others do. And so, I don't have to tell you how important your reputation is, but what we found for us, and maybe for you, maybe this will help you, is the number one thing that drives the reputation is our values. And our values are a set of, values that we use to guide our operations. And whenever we have to make big decisions, we look at our values and we say, are we in line with our values? And our values can be dynamic. Our values have changed over time as our markets have changed and the world has changed, and different things in the world become more important. We've established and changed our values, but these values are what drive the reputation. Hang on just one sec. I'm being visited.
John has a great question.
Oh.
I thought maybe you should answer.
Okay.
He says, on the one-on-one, wouldn't you need your brand message on what you were selling?
Okay.
And then, does your reputation drive one-to-one or one-to-many conversations?
Okay, so we have a question from John. Thanks, John. I'm going to answer these for you. So Jane is relating them to me. So the first one was?
On the one-to-one.
On the one-to-one.
Wouldn't you need your brand message on what you are selling?
100%. So the question is, on the one-to-one, at the one-to-one level of influence, wouldn't you need your brand message on what you're selling? The answer is absolutely, because all of these all work together. And the biggest mistake that we see and that I have made is trying to operate at any one of these levels without giving consideration to the others. So John, you're absolutely correct. That's why we need all 6 levels of influence. And then there's a second part to John's question, which was?
Does your reputation drive one-on-one or one-to-many conversations?
Does the reputation drive one-to-one or one-to-many conversations? The answer is both. And the reason I can say that is because, pre-COVID, Jane and I traveled the entire world speaking to groups. Those groups were there. And the reason they invited us to speak was because of our reputation. So it drove one-to-many conversations. In addition to that, we get people who call us and we don't know who they are. And they'll just say, Steve, I heard of you from whomever, and I want to work with you. That is where the reputation drives the one-on-one experience. So it's both. And so watch, if your reputation is out there and people are saying the right things about you, then what happens is that reputation drives, your community, because people come, they want to be part of your community. That's a one-to-many relationship. The community is going to build your network because you're going to establish alliances, and that network is going to drive one-on-one conversations. And it all happens. It's all intertwined. That's why I said at the beginning, they don't necessarily roll out in a linear fashion like this. They are all mission critical. And so the title of this program is, how do you leverage the 6 levels of influence? The first way you leverage the 6 levels of influence is understanding that they are all interconnected, and they are all mission critical. If you take any one of these levels out, the whole thing falls apart. If you take the reputation out, then the branding isn't going to serve you. I'll give you an example. And in my judgment, it's almost impossible not to have a reputation of some kind. So I'm going to use lawn care companies as an example because that's the one that comes into my mind. I live in Ottawa, Canada. In Ottawa here, I can think of 2 major lawn care companies that take care of lawns. I have used them both. They're both very popular. They're both national brands. And so they're both here. So can they sell? Absolutely, they can sell. I've worked with both of them and they sell. One of them sells very underhandedly, the other doesn't. Do they have a network? I'm sure they do, because I've been to all the networking groups and I've seen people from both companies in those networking groups. Do they have a community? I'm not really sure, except one of them I know does an enormous amount of service over and above lawn care. Do they have a circle of influence? I'm going to assume that they do. Now, here's where I want to get to, though. Do they have a brand? Absolutely. Both of them have a brand. I can spot them just by looking at their colors, at their logo instantaneously. They do have a brand. Now, let's talk about their reputation. One of these companies I would recommend to people anytime, anywhere, and I have. The other company, I recommend you turn around and run and don't ever work with this company. And I'm not going to say their names here, but if you reach out and ask me, I will tell you who they are and I will tell you why. So the reputation is there, but their reputations are profoundly different and they are all interconnected. And what's really interesting is that the organization that has the crappy reputation, the one I wouldn't recommend, I was able to identify that. I didn't know it at the time, but in retrospect, I can tell just by the way they do their one-on-ones, by the way they handle their customers and their prospects. It doesn't surprise me at all that that's their reputation. And I have to admit, I am in some kind of minor little part responsible for that reputation, because when some things happened with me with that company, I told everybody. And so that's I don't do that so much anymore. But what I used to do is, when I got really bad service from somebody, I told the world. Now, in addition, when I got great service from somebody, I told the world. That I still do. So to answer those questions, John, I hope I nailed them. But the first thing is absolutely the branding is incorporated in everything, and the reputation is incorporated into everything. We need to have all of these. So, folks, I hope this was of value. But I do have a gift for you before we go. I've shown you this, the perfect sales system. This is just a very high level description of it. And it's not a step-by-step, but it goes through all the different keys that are part of the perfect sales system. You can have this. This is my gift to you. It's our gift to you, because our mission is to help 1,000 entrepreneurs change the way they speak to their market so that you can attract your ideal prospect and close 80% or more of your sales conversations. And so that's why we're so passionate about entrepreneurs who see the value in growing their selling skills. So if you would like this, it's a PDF. We'll get it to you. So just go into the chat window, whether you're watching us live or whether you are watching the recording, go to the chat window and just put it in there. Please send me the perfect sales system, and one of our team members will get that right to you. So folks, I hope this was of value to you. I like to try and keep these to about 20 minutes or so when we can, and stay tuned, because, one more thing before we go. If you're interested in this, one of the things we're going to be doing, and we're going to be starting this in the next few weeks, is hot seat sessions. So hot seat sessions on here mean this. We're going to pick somebody, a volunteer, who will come on. And in about 15 or 20 minutes, what we'll do is we'll put you on the hot seat. You join me right here on the screen. And we will work on any of these things with you. We will work on your keynote presentation with you, if you like. That's one of the things that I do. We will work on your 60-second positioning message, if that's of value to you. We will show you how to tell stories that really elevate your business. We will help you with that. So if you've got things that you believe would like to be, where you would like to be on the hot seat, let me know. And we'll bring, and if we don't do that work, obviously we'll tell you. But if I think that we can provide real value to you, then we'll invite you on with us. And that way we can help you, and everybody will get to benefit from that. Folks, thanks very much for joining us today. That's a wrap for today. I'm Steve Lowell, and I can't wait to see you again on another one of our live sessions. Have a great day.